So I first read the work of John Clayton when I read his excellent The Cowboy Girl, The Life of Carolyn Lockhart, which if there's anyone here who hasn't read it, I would encourage them to run out and read it right away. It's a fantastic book. Since '93, John's written regularly for Montana Quarterly, Montana Magazine of Western History, and he writes even some publications that don't include the word Montana in it. That's a good.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, everyone. What a thrill to be reading in front of such a wonderful, huge, and enthusiastic crowd. Following up on Alan's request, I'm going to tell you a little bit about The Cowboy Girl. When Caroline Lockhart wrote a novel about a notorious rustler and Wild West bad man in 1911, it ended with him being thrown into a pit of rattlesnakes. Decades later, she encountered a rustler in real life and deemed his life worth $200. Her contract on the Rustler proved the most controversial section of my biography of Lockhart, The Cowboy Girl. Everyone wanted to know what was wrong with her. I then go into Lockhart's career a little bit and talk about the way that she ended up buying a ranch after writing best-selling novels, and then found someone stealing her livestock. In The Cowboy Girl, I detailed the frustration she endured. Law enforcement in the county seat more than 100 miles away could do nothing. A famed private detective cost a fortune but hardly got off the couch. Ranch employees wouldn't confront the obvious suspect, and Lockhart's attempts to drive him out of the area, in a "this town ain't big enough for both of us" approach, proved fruitless. So finally she put out a contract. She told a former employee that the neighbor's ears were worth $100 apiece to her. He understood the request. Murder. When you tell people this today, they're aghast. Was she paranoid, out of touch with reality, mentally ill? Was she arrogant and just plain mean? The only regrets she expressed in her diary concerned her fear of getting caught. How could she place so little value on human life? The way I see it, however, Lockhart was coming face to face with not only a lawbreaker, but the limits of that Wild West mythology that she had helped create. After all, in a Clint Eastwood movie, the rustler would be summarily dispatched to great audience satisfaction because eliminating a villain is more important than following the rules. Why do we resist Lockhart in the Clint Eastwood role? Well, for one thing, she's Clint Eastwood in a dress. Do we expect women to follow moral rules better than men? For another, she's Clint Eastwood with a fistful of dollars but no magnum force of her own. She hired a killer rather than doing it herself. Can we accept outsourcing of business processes better than emotional ones? Is our discomfort related to our complicated feelings about class? For a third, Eastwood himself has moved beyond these roles. Can his fans no longer picture a lawless frontier where enforcing your rights is a job for everybody, not just lawyers and cops? Finally, I believe the episode troubles people because we are watching Lockhart confuse the fantasy world of the Wild West with reality. As much as we love tales of vicarious vigilantism, we know that the real world requires individual conceptions of justice to conform to societal rules. Those Western novels and movies are escapism. Living here, we seem to believe, requires a set of values and strengths you can't pick up in a book. Except maybe a book as good as this one. The hitman Lockhart hired never followed through on the contract. He simply pocketed her $35 down payment and left town. Lockhart went back to pleading with the cops to arrest her neighbor. Eventually, he somehow dematerialized from the neighborhood, probably headed for Seattle during the World War II jobs boom. But in the meantime, I gained some empathy for her feeling of impotence. She'd been hoping the West was a fairy tale world where silent strangers mete out vengeful justice. But she found herself living in a real world where you can't even find a pit of rattlesnakes when you need them.